Today on Defining Wealth Beyond the Numbers, we're joined by Laurin Rivers, co-founder of Pockets Full of Sunshine. Laurin's story is one that truly stays with you. Originally from Tennessee, she made South Carolina home after graduating from Clemson and eventually settled here in the Low Country with her husband, Robert, a Hilton Head Island native. Before co-founding Pockets Full of Sunshine, Laurin spent 6 years as a clinically certified speech-language pathologist in the Beaufort County School District. But what really stood out to me in our conversation is how she shifted her full-time focus to building an organization that creates meaningful employment and joyful community for adults with disabilities. Laurin shares how the Rays have changed her life, her leadership, and her definition of wealth. And I think you're really going to feel the heart behind her story. She often says it's impossible to have a bad day after being with them, and you'll hear exactly why. Laurin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, appreciate you being here. So we always start with the same question and in the path. So what was your first job?
Goodness, my very first job, I started babysitting whenever I was pretty young, probably similar to many females. So caregiving was always kind of like a natural thing, I guess. And my first real job where I got like a paycheck was
Cash on the side.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of just under the table.
Yeah.
Although babysitting is a very valuable job. I waited tables whenever I was in college because I felt like, okay, it's time for me I babysat all through high school and college, but it's time for me to go get a real job. And I think everyone should wait tables at least once in their life.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why afterwards.
Oh, okay. I wonder if our reasons are similar.
But so the reason why I think that is because I've done a lot of jobs also. And the one job that I was not very good at was a waiter.
Really?
Yeah, because you had to, for me, it was, when I work, right?
Yeah.
When I was younger, this is where I've changed. I've learned to be able to work and personalize.
Definitely.
But when I grew up and you worked, right? Mm-hmm. So when I was waitering, you can't just make sure they have the food on time. You have to make sure they have the food on time and be nice about it.
And be nice about it.
And be personable, right?
And you're over here and over here and over here. It's very difficult, but I think such a great skill. And I think everyone should wait tables at least once in their life because I think it really gives you empathy for people in the service industry and a lot of respect. Mm-hmm. And because it's so easy sometimes to overlook those positions and treat people not respectfully when you're thirsty or hungry or something like that. And I also think it's just such a great skill to always be able to know you can fall back on and something that you can do. So to hone that and be good at it is really a skill. So
I mean, being personal is a skill. And we learn that as we get older, right?
Yes.
Even more. I try and teach my kids that. I know you have young kids, I got older kids, and be personable.
Absolutely.
Because things happen.
The relationships are everything. We talk about that all the time at Pockets and just in life in general. And I say the same things to my kids who are little.
Yeah. But if you keep saying it eventually, because they won't listen to you the first 2,000 times.
No.
But then after that, maybe they will.
Yeah. Eventually it becomes internalized, maybe by the time they're in their 20s, right? Yeah. And it really matters. No, but I do really believe that relationships are everything.
Yeah. So then you were waitering, and then tell me what happened from there.
Let's see. I worked whenever I went to Clemson, and I worked for the Early Autism Project was the name of it. It was kind of just a random, I knew that I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I was a communication studies major. And I'm not sure even how speech pathology got on my radar, but it did. And I went and I kind of job shadowed at a local elementary school. And I thought, oh, I like this. Like, I like working with kids. This seems like kind of clinical. Like, there's a lot of different elements I like. And so I thought, all right, if this is what I want to do and potentially go to graduate school for, I need to kind of start like getting my foot in the door in that vein. And I found a job with the Early Autism Project as a line therapist was my title. And that was kind of my first exposure to working with children with special needs. And I loved it. And that's just kind of that's the field that I went into. I did end up getting my graduate degree in speech pathology. I've worked with people of all ages across the spectrum. I went in thinking like, oh, I really want to work with children. And that morphed to like, oh, I love working with adults, which is kind of, serendipitously now what the path led to Pockets. And here we are.
Well, that's a great segue, right? So tell me about the organization, about how you started to get involved in the organization. Give me some idea.
Sure. Okay. So I was working here as a speech pathologist when I moved to Hilton Head. I started working for Beaufort County School District. So I worked there for about 7 years. And I worked again with kids of all ages from preschool all the way up to high school. And I found my like bread and butter. I really loved the older kids, which I thought, oh, this is like graduate school. And I loved working with the adults and the nursing facility, skilled nursing facilities, because, working with the little kids is sometimes really exhausting. And
Well, especially now you have 3 young ones at home too.
especially having them exactly your own. And it's like, I just felt like it was magical working with these older students because they were so appreciative of having really just like your time. And it wasn't even that, like, I always used to say, it's like grandma. Whenever I come into their classroom and say, hey, it's time for speech, they're so excited to see me. They don't even really care what we're working on for the day, or if it's hard for them, they're really excited to have that like one-on-one time with somebody, and just to be seen. And
Which is amazing.
and I just loved it. And I thought, this is so great. And so, working with those students, it really showed me that the big need, and this is everywhere, not just here, is for post-secondary, like what are they doing after high school? Because they graduate high school in South Carolina, at the age of 21. And a lot of the families, describe it as falling off a cliff. All of a sudden, there's no services. They're used to being in school where they've got therapies built in, structure, they've got social opportunities, they have everything. And then they graduate and all these families just feel like they're floating and like, what do we do now? So I knew that that was the issue, that we really needed services for adults. And so along with another special education teacher and the parents of she was graduating at the time, adult with special needs, we started Pockets Full of Sunshine. And so we work with adults with special needs. We provide them with inclusive social, and vocational opportunities. And our goal really is just plugging them into the community, giving them opportunities and making sure that our community really, we're advocating for them and they are seeing like how wonderful these individuals are and how much they are able to add to everyone, and to all that we do if given the right supports and the opportunity to do so.
So it's amazing you're talking about helping the adults, right? The adults that have the special needs. But to me, you're also helping the families behind them
Oh.
just as much, if not more.
Absolutely.
Is that fair to say?
Definitely. As you said, I have 3 little kids. It's difficult for me to find caregivers for them whenever I've got things to do. Imagine trying to find a caregiver for your 45-year-old. It's very hard. There's definitely a lack of support for these families. And so giving them not only respite, which is a huge thing, but even just a sense of community, I think is like everything, because that's what we all want. And again, you have that kind of built in when your kids are in school and then they graduate and it just kind of all goes away. And so to give them all really like we always say Pockets is like a family. And I think all of the families involved with us would totally agree. They all have formed relationships with each other, the families, friendships. And it's really beautiful to see that. And for people to feel like they have a place.
So it's like an empty nester, right? In the sense that if your kids go to college or they're out of the house, a lot of times, where's the community at that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it definitely fills a need that these families really have, because that can be such an isolating, situation to be in anyway. And when you have, an individual in your family with special needs, and so to have that is so meaningful to them.
So what skills do you think someone needs to be in your position?
Goodness. I would say blind hope, because that's kind of how we started. Some luck. No, but also I think just we in the beginning, like I didn't know anything about running a nonprofit. We just kind of said, this is a need, and so we're going to try to fill it. And we did. And I always say, like, our motto is kind of like, if we just keep doing the next right thing, the next door will open, like the next opportunity will come. And that's really been very true for our organization. We started this big and now we've grown so much bigger, over the last 10 years. And I feel like we're really, an integral part of the community. We're known throughout, especially over the last few years. I've said it's like been a big shift from me knocking on doors saying like, this is who we are. And we would love to participate, or do you have anything we could do, to now people knock on our door constantly and we actually have to turn opportunities away because we have so much. And I think
that must be rough.
Yeah, no, it's a good problem to have. But yeah, it's scaling the growth is always, a challenge. But, I think it speaks to, if you just keep on trying and you keep on like following your heart, really, then I think that will lead you to where you're supposed to be.
Yep. Persistence.
Yes,
That's a key.
persistence definitely is key.
So you mentioned scaling the growth. How do you do that?
Well, in the nonprofit world, it's a delicate dance, I think, because it's not like we can just sell more of a product or something like that. It's really, that's where I think a lot of the relationships come into key, because obviously we are very dependent on others, not only for funding and donors, but also volunteering. And again, even just the opportunities when we're filling the day of the rays. That's what we refer to our adults as, because they're rays of sunshine. Yeah, just having, the relationship, so that we have the relationship with the rec center and we can like go in and, work on a project for them, or with this local business or that local business. And so keeping all of those things, it's like juggling a lot of balls in the air. But that's where I think relationships really come into play, because it's a real like microcosm of like really what community is, where everybody's like interdependent and on one another. And I think that's really special and unique and important.
Was there an aha moment that you've had that made you say, this is, and I know you've mentioned why you got into it, but was there anything that specifically happened that said, all right, this is what I want to do, and this is starting this nonprofit is the right thing to do? Because a lot of people could think, I want to do it, but the question is, do they actually do it? And you did.
Yeah.
So is there some sort of moment that made you say, this needs to be done?
I mean, it really just kind of, it's very organic. I always say we're like grassroots. Like, I said we started with one adult, and we were meeting on the weekends because we thought, well, then these adults need something to do on the weekends, talking to parents and other of our students and whatnot, and recognizing that a lot of, again, those opportunities all went away, and they would say, oh, they just sit at home, they don't have anything to do. And so we said, okay, well, we're going to give them something to do. We're going to like start meeting on the weekends and do these great, projects and whatnot. We'll take them out into the community events and whatnot, and like really plug them in. And so it started so small, but then it grew very organically. Someone would bring a friend, another person would hear about it and want to volunteer. Oh, I know this family that just moved.
When it's an important need, it just winds up coming to you.
Yeah, it kind of really grew, and we grew a lot during COVID. I would say that was a big aha moment kind of for us, because that was a situation where everybody was isolated all of a sudden, and the world kind of shut down, and we went, well, our population is kind of isolated all the time, and so this is even harder on them, than it is for everybody else. Well, not necessarily it's hard for everybody, but even more isolation.
Yeah, of course.
And so we thought, gosh, this really is so important. And that was when the families we were already working with were like, it was like a lifeline for them to be able to have relationships and have something for their adult to go do. And we really grew a lot during that time, because other programs that did exist, which there were already pretty few, some never came back. And so we just like exploded kind of during that time. And once everything kind of opened back up, it's just like taken off like a rocket.
It's continued.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of volunteers?
We do. We have a lot of wonderful volunteers.
How do you manage them?
How do we manage them?
Well, it's different, right, than managing someone who's getting a paycheck, right?
Absolutely.
So there's different relationships, different ways to do it. So how do you handle it?
Absolutely. I think the main thing is making sure everybody knows how appreciated they are. And a lot of times people value that more than a paycheck, I think.
100%. It's been known that that's the truth.
Yeah, no, oh, definitely. Well, I see that. And so that's what and our team is always making sure that we are really going out of our way, because people giving you their time is so valuable. And I think it's really special. We rarely have like a one-time volunteer. Pretty much everybody that volunteers with us wants to come back again because of what they're getting out of the experience. And so I think that speaks a lot to what we're doing, but also, just making sure that they really feel that we value and appreciate the time that they're giving, because that's, your most valuable resource.
Agreed. And do you have employees also, people that work? So do you have to manage that differently?
Yes, a little bit. I think it's similar. I also want them to feel valued. But it is a little bit of a different management style. We do have a couple of employees. We also always usually have a few interns that work with us from usually the colleges. We have a high school intern right now, which is neat. And I love that about what we do, because I think it's so special to get young people really like in the door, and especially if they have an interest particularly in what we're doing. And that, like, the adults don't really want to hang out with me. They want to hang out with the people that are closer in age to them, a lot of our younger adults. And so that is really meaningful, and getting, like, plugging us in with those groups. But I would say managing the employees is a little different. I try to make sure, again, that people feel valued, but also just that I'm recognizing everybody's individual strengths and that they are recognizing each other's strengths, because it's really important in any business to be able to work well as a team. And I think that's the main thing is like, it's so easy to have conflict and anywhere, but especially like in the workplace. And if you can really see like, well, this is different. Their style of doing this is different than mine, but it's valuable because, it connects to these people or it really speaks to this. And then I think you can overlook flaws a lot easier and get along a lot better and work well together.
Yeah, it's interesting because what you're saying is true. You got to try and recognize what someone's strength is, right? And that's in anything.
Absolutely.
And then help them accentuate that strength.
Definitely.
And then where maybe their weakness is, maybe someone else's strength is there. And when you can get them to work together, it can be a powerful combination.
Oh, absolutely.
Rather than trying to get them to do what you think they should do, if you can really pay attention and listen, it's better to be interested than interesting.
Yes.
And you listen, right? You can take those skills and someone else's skills and combine them.
Absolutely.
So this is a podcast about wealth,
yes.
Right? So we always finish off with this question on how has your definition of wealth changed from when you first started working, so you graduated, to now? And maybe it didn't, or maybe it has, but if it has, explain that if you don't mind.
I would definitely say my definition of wealth has completely changed. I think, of course, the obvious answer is like you look at it as amassing, financial wealth.
Assets and
assets. Yeah, things. And I would say twofold. Since having children, my definition has changed. I think that, time, like I said, is like to have time, to have flexibility with your time, especially when it comes to family and whatnot, like that is so valuable and really worth more than gold. I also think happiness, as cliche as that kind of sounds, something that it really is like a guiding principle for me with Pockets, but something that one of our fathers of one of our adults we serve said to me a few years ago is, at the end of the day, I just want her to be happy. And that has stuck with me in so many areas of life, like especially how I work with the adults but also just in general, I think at the end of the day, like it doesn't matter how much stuff you have, but how much did you enjoy the time you had? And I think about that whenever I'm, coming up with activities for the adults. I think about that when I'm raising my own children. And I think that's what really makes you wealthy in the end is like how much joy you had.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. Most people, that's when you first started working, it's just about assets, like you said, and then it just develops over time. But what you said that when you got that aha moment from that parent, that's what we're hoping that people who watch this get from you and other guests, is that maybe something you said is like, wow, and that sticks with them. So thank you. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
It's great having you.
Absolutely. So nice to meet you, and thank you.
Same. Bye.